talking sports with Hacksaw, let's talk a little bit about the Garv. And to me, this is a fun story. Steve Garvey, and we had talked a little bit about this about a month or two ago, where the Garv was flirting with the idea of running for Senate as a Republican in California, and now he's made it official. He's in. Steve Garvey has entered the race for U.S. Senate as a Republican. And you might be thinking, who's Garvey? Well, if you're a baseball fan, you know who he is. He played for the LA Dodgers, I think from the late 60s until the early 80s. All-star MVP, and then he finished out his career with the San Diego Padres and had one of the most memorable hits in Padres history. And he had always sort of flirted with the idea of being in politics, even in the 1980s. Because he was sort of a straight arrow, clean cut guy. He was a Reagan guy. He was, and always had interest in politics. And he was going to get involved with that. But then he had a lot of scandals in his personal life and in his professional life that derailed his aspirations of running for government, for public office. And now he's jumped in. Now he's going in as a Republican in the state of California. You'd think, oh, there's no way this is going to work, because California is so overwhelmingly blue. But Garvey, when he made his announcement, he appeared to downplay his party affiliation, because California has not elected a Republican to the U.S. Senate since Pete Wilson was reelected in 1988. Now, of course, this is the Senate position for Dianne Feinstein, who recently passed away, who was originally hoping to finish out her term, and she wasn't able to finish it. She passed away. Governor Gavin Newsom has appointed LaFonza Butler, who is a union activist, a women's rights activist, to fill that job until the next election. And we have 3 Democrat politicians, Congress people, that are already in on this election. It's Barbara Lee and Katie Porter and Adam Schiff are also running for this. But none of the Republicans that are in this race are prominent Republicans, because everyone knows that a Republican's going to have no chance to win this. Now, Adam Schiff, you may remember him. He was kind of the dude that was one of the spokespeople in the impeachment of Donald Trump. And he said, in response to Garvey's announcement, quote, "Before he was a multimillionaire Republican celebrity, he was a first baseman. Based on his announcement, it sounds like he's ready to take up the fight for everyone born on third base. They hit a triple. Go figure." This is just typical BS between Republicans and Democrats. I mean, really, I would imagine, the Republican base in California are not rich people. The rich people in California are overwhelmingly blue. Silicon Valley, parts of LA are very, very Democratic. You have to go to the rural parts of California, Central Valley, where you're going to find a lot more GOP support. And those are people that were born at home plate or first base, not third base. But, they always play up that divide. And according to this quote here was from Barbara Lee, she said, "At a time when our reproductive rights are under attack and our democracy is being undermined by Trump and his MAGA extremist supporters in Congress and across the country, we need a senator who will fight for our, economic, racial, and climate justice, and who has the experience needed to be an effective progressive leader in the Senate." Well, Barbara Lee's a progressive. Barbara Lee, by the way, I will give credit to her. She was one of, I think, maybe the only person in the Senate or in the Congress that voted against, was it the Iraq War or the Afghanistan War? It might have been the Afghanistan War. So she's a principled person, and a progressive, no doubt. But does California need a progressive? I mean, Dianne Feinstein held that position for, 30 years. Dianne Feinstein was not a progressive, not really. I mean, she was definitely more of a centrist Democrat, a pro-military Democrat, a pro-establishment Democrat. Barbara Boxer was probably a little bit more progressive than Feinstein. But do we need a progressive in that position? I guess we'll find out. The voters are going to vote. But it is interesting that Barbara Lee said we need someone that's for economic justice, racial justice, and climate justice. Now, does that make sense? I mean, economic justice, what does that mean? To me, justice is getting what you deserve, whether rightfully or wrongfully. If you do good things, you should be rewarded. And if you do evil things, you should be punished. That's what justice should be. It's funny how people will kind of frame justice in collectivist terms, like racial justice, economic justice, climate justice. To me, justice is an individual thing. I mean, as individuals, we should get what we deserve, regardless of what our skin color is, our status in the economy, climate related issues. We should just get what we deserve. Justice should be thought of, I think, as an individual. Now, what does the Garv want to do? He says his top priorities in his campaign are education, quality of life, public safety, national security, homelessness, support for small business. Kind of reminds me a little bit about Amy Reichert, who is a Republican who's running in the county supervisor race. I think it's District 4, trying to replace, what's his name that was that resigned in disgrace, Fletcher. Can't remember his first name, but anyways, Amy Fletcher is running for office as a Republican, and she's highlighting the same things: quality of life, public safety, small business, homelessness. But it's funny. I mean, as a Republican in the state of Cal, she's a Republican, Amy Reichert, so is Garvey. You can't be, going for all the religious right kind of talking points about anti-abortion, anti-gay rights. I mean, you would just be snuffed out, instantly in the state of California. Rightfully so. Because we all deserve equal rights. Gays deserve the same rights as anybody else. And I am a big supporter of a woman's right to choose. It's her body. It should be her choice. But the Garv is running on a different platform. Now, does he have a chance? You might think, well, maybe the other candidates are going to split the vote, and he's the one Republican that, might garner 80, 90% of the Republican votes, and maybe he can find a pathway. But in the end, they're only going to take the top two into the general election. So there'll be a primary I assume in March, and then the top two will be elected, or the vote will be in November of 2024. But it's going to be either Schiff or Lee or Porter. One of those three is going to win the primary, and one of the others might get second place. Maybe Garvey gets second place. But even if the Garv got second, you go into the general election, there's no way he's going to win in California. Do I support Garvey? No, I don't. I just find it interesting that he's a sports guy that's getting into politics. And to me, I'm a sports guy that I enjoy talking about sports and politics. So to me, it's an interesting story. And it's also kind of reflective of the values in California. And we're going to see here a celebrity Republican. I think the last celebrity Republican that ran for office in California was Arnold Schwarzenegger, and he won. But that was 20 years ago. And the climate in California is more progressive, more blue. And even though the Garv is, part of blue heaven, part of Dodger blue, he's going to get crushed by the Democratic vote. I don't think he has a chance. But tell me what you think in the live stream. Tell me in the chat on Facebook or YouTube, and we'll get you involved.